Global trade war. Tensions spill into WTO session over China overcapacity. Trump tariffs. An obscure committee in Geneva became the latest battleground in the global trade war on Tuesday, as Chinese diplomats clashed with counterparts from the United States, Europe, Japan, and others over claims of Beijing's industrial overcapacities and Washington's swinging tariffs. Tensions threatened to boil over at the World Trade Organization's Committee on Subsidies and Countervailing Measures, as a U.S.-led group of members attacked China for its alleged subsidies and industrial overflows. In heated responses, Beijing turned the tables on those countries' own trade policies, lashing out at U.S. President Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs. The U.S.'s subsidies for its chips industry as well as EU duties on Chinese-made electric vehicles, according to Geneva trade sources. Do you have questions about the biggest topics and trends from around the world? Get the answers with SCMP Knowledge, our new platform of curated content with explainers, FAQs, analyses, and infographics brought to you by our award-winning team. The stormy session showed the precarious nature of the global trading system and profiled what appeared to be irreconcilable differences between some of the world's key trading nations. According to the sources, the U.S. first took the floor to claim that China's extensive, state-driven subsidies are uniquely responsible for persistent and harmful global overcapacity. The U.S. representative said subsidies, including cheap land and large-scale financing, artificially boost production in sectors like steel, solar, electric vehicles, and chemicals far beyond domestic or global demand. The U.S. representatives claimed the trend was causing factories to close from South Africa to India, and that China's reluctance to discuss the issue highlighted how sensitive the matter is for China and how it seeks to avoid transparency regarding the impact of its subsidies, the source said. The U.S. side ridiculed an appeal for stability from China, claiming that it was cover for its ambition to dominate global supply chains. The intervention was co-sponsored by Britain, the EU, Japan, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and Brazil, each of which took the floor to express their concerns about China's industrial excesses. Brazil, calling for dialogue rather than unilateral measures which may worsen trade distortions, said green subsidies could disadvantage developing countries due to limited fiscal space and exposure to subsidy-driven competition and trade barriers. The EU pointed to research showing that China's weak domestic demand and growing trade surplus stemmed from non-transparent, large-scale state intervention rather than market competition. China responded with several lengthy rebuttals, dismissing the attacks on overcapacity as a false narrative, since there was no agreed definition for determining the phenomenon. Beijing claimed that its huge export growth showed its comparative advantage and pointed to similar trade patterns among some of its accusers, noting that the U.S. exported more than half of certain agricultural goods that it produces, whereas Japan exported almost half of its manufactured cars. The Chinese side said the issue was being politicized and misused as a pretext for protectionist actions aimed at containing China's growth, and urged the committee not to waste time on the overcapacity issue. Instead, Beijing's representative said, it should focus on the real issue of unilateralism and protectionism. The United States' use of reciprocal tariffs. In separate agenda items, China slammed the U.S. for providing discriminatory subsidies to its semiconductor industry under the Chips and Science Act, and said its recent countervailing duty investigations into solar products from Southeast Asia were an overstep of jurisdiction and an undermining of WTO rules. Beijing's representatives clashed with the EU over Brussels' tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicle imports and over China's probes into subsidies in the EU's dairy sector, which the European side said was based on questionable allegations and insufficient evidence. The session came as Trump threatened to shake up the global trading system with a series of deep tariff moves pointed at allies and rivals alike. The tensions highlighted the divergences among many WTO members, suggesting that it could become a front for fighting on some of the most fiery issues of the day. Trump's huge tariffs on Chinese imports have also stoked fears among third countries, particularly in Europe, that they could become a dumping ground for China's industrial overflows. Facing tariffs of more than 120%, many Chinese goods are effectively blocked from the U.S. market, with the EU repeatedly warning Beijing against cut-price trade diversion that could put its local manufacturers under fresh pressure. The issue was discussed in several recent EU-China exchanges, with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and Chinese Premier Li Qiang, discussing setting up a mechanism for tracking possible trade diversion and ensuring any developments are duly addressed, earlier in April. During its intervention in Geneva on Tuesday, the EU called for an upgrade to the WTO's rules to deal with structural distortions. It also reaffirmed its commitment to take necessary actions to protect European industries in line with WTO principles.